Hello, everyone. I wanted to share my story in some details. I was kind of hesitating to, make a video, but you know what? I thought maybe I should do that because few people thought maybe, maybe I'm not a real person. Some people thought there was some Jewish conspiracy going on, and all sorts of ideas out there. So I wanted to make a video to show that I'm a real person. I was born I was born into an Ismaili family. My dad is Ismaili, my mom was Sunni, and I was raised as an Ismaili. And around the age of maybe 18 or so in high school, I found Islam. Some of my friends invited me to read the Quran, and I started reading it. I started praying, what was called namaz or salah. And I got really excited. I found the Quran, and I got really excited about it. I really liked it. And I said, hey, this is God's message to me. I didn't look into it too critically. I felt like, I looked into a little bit of other religions and stuff, and I felt it's just instinctive, and I felt like this is something, good, something I want to follow, God's message. And I started praying 5 times a day. And, eventually I took a deep dive into Islam. I started following it with all my heart and mind. Within like a few years after that, I studied university, and then I got married, and then, what else? And then I started working. So when I was working, I tried my best to implement Islam. I would pray even at the office. I would find a stairwell. I would go and pray wherever I could, and I would get, if we had a prayer room, I would invite other people to come pray with me. And even in university, in the middle of exams, I would stop to pray. I would ask them, can I please get up? I need to say my prayers for Maghrib especially. And yeah, I was following it to the best of my ability, to be honest. I sincerely believed in Islam. I used to give out some DVDs. I made some DVDs of my own with some Islamic videos. I used to go from mosque to mosque, videotaping lectures and at conferences, and I wanted to promote it because I felt truly in my heart this was the true religion. I wanted people to go to Jannah. I wanted Allah to be pleased with me, and I wanted to follow the Prophet. And so that's what I did. I created a website, lightuponlight.com, and eventually another one, versebyversequran.com, to promote Islam because I believed in it. And there's still a bunch of videos on there if you go and see of that I videotape myself, some of the lectures, and some of the other ones I got permission from others to put online. So that's what I was doing. And when I started working, I would avoid jobs that were involved with riba, anything to do with the bank. I wouldn't work for any banks whatsoever. I wouldn't work in the media industry like television or music. Personally, I would avoid I wouldn't listen to music. I wouldn't let my kids listen to music. I even put my kids in Islamic school, for as much as I could afford it, even though it was expensive here in Canada. But I mean, that's what you do, right? If you're a Muslim and you truly believe in it in all your heart, as well. I used to rent. I didn't have a mortgage because I believed in it. Now, there came a point in my life where I started having a little bit of doubt here and there, small doubts, and eventually, I was at 2 years ago. Um, I had some doubts. I was discussing with a friend online, and he mentioned that a lot of the stories in the Quran actually come from Jewish folk tales. And I was very surprised about that, like Jewish folk tales. I said, no, no, no. You mean it came from the Bible or the Hebrew Torah? And when I looked into it, I found out that actually a lot of the stories are from the Talmud, which is actually the Jewish commentary and the Jewish stories and basically the rabbis, commentary of the traditions. And so it doesn't really have a divine origin. And I also had a big problem with the story of Dhul Qarnayn. This tribe of how Dhul Qarnayn, he trapped this tribe of people, Yajuj and Majuj, Gog and Magog, behind a giant gate built of copper and iron. And and I was wondering, where is this place? How come we can't find it? We have Google Earth and all that, and how come we can't find it? So that was another doubt. And I believe, left Islam for one day. But then I decided, you know what? I'm gonna put my doubts aside. I'm Muslim. I want to go to Jannah. I want to believe in Allah. And I became Muslim for one more year. And then last year, so 1 year ago, is when when I truly left Islam for good. I was in Ramadan, and I was at a pre-iftar halaqah, and the sheikh was saying, Allah holds up the sky without any pillars. And this brought back all my doubts about, if the Quran is truly from God, the creator of the universe, the one that knows all things, why is he describing the world in a way that, was the 7th century understanding of the world? Like, the sky doesn't have, okay, we know the sky doesn't have any pillars that you can see, but there's no need for pillars. Like, we're just a ball in space. Sky is just, it's just emptiness. It's just emptiness of space. So there's no there's no need for any pillars, visible or invisible. And there's many things like that, like the orbit of the sun and the moon. Why Allah describes an orbit of the sun and the moon? Like, we know the orbit of the moon is around the earth. That makes sense. But the orbit of the sun, like, what orbit would that be? I looked into this and I found, well, there is an orbit. It's a 300 million year orbit of the sun around the Milky Way galaxy, which has nothing to do with humanity whatsoever, because it's completely useless. But of course, at that time, the Muslims would have thought that this orbit is an orbit of the sun around the earth. And even in Sahih Hadith, Prophet Muhammad, he asked his companions, do you know where the sun goes when at the time of Maghrib? And they said, Allah knows best and his messenger knows best. And he said, it goes beneath the throne of Allah. Now we know the sun is actually still there, and it's actually the earth that's going around the sun. So this one and many other things, they didn't add up to me, that why the creator of the universe is making these mistakes, or describing it in a way that doesn't make any sense today, now based on the new information. And it made me wonder, is it truly Allah the creator, or is it just coming from a man that lived in the 7th century, that believed these things and was basically writing them as he went? And so, the stories in the Quran, like I said, Dhul Qarnayn, where is Gog and Magog, Yajuj and Majuj? There's supposed to be, millions and millions of them stuck behind this dam. We haven't found any giant gate anywhere in the world. I mean, even some of I think it was Omar, we went to look for it and they didn't find it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? And so these things, my doubts began to grow and grow. And eventually I got to the point where I said, this can't be from God. I don't believe in this anymore. And because my doubt became more than my certainty. And when I started to look into each one of the claims that of in the Quran, that the Quran is actually from God, like embryology and the mountains and all of these things, including the language, I found they just fell down flat. Like, for example, embryology, all you have to do is look into these things in detail to see how people misrepresent the Quran to be a scientific thing, when actually it's not. These stories were meant to be like, kind of to bring you to remember God and to say, look how amazing it is that, the embryo, how it glows. It wasn't meant to be, scientifically accurate. And when you look into it, you find it's actually, the idea is flawed. And same thing with the stories in the Quran, like, if they were true stories, why is it that we're finding trouble, verifying these facts? I'll make another video about Dhul Qarnayn in the future. It's a longer topic. But in summary, I just don't believe that there's any possibility that this actually came from a divine being, this book, the Quran. And when you look into it, you find many things that don't add up. And this is why I had to eventually leave Islam. Despite all the investment I put into it, emotional investment, and, my personality, my friends, everything was Islam to me. So this was a huge loss, losing God. Hi, it's Abdullah Sameer. I'm recording this to answer a question that I got asked as to, why do you care if anyone believes in heaven and hell? Why do you care if anyone spends time to worship God? Why do you care if someone spends the time doing religious practices? Whether it's, praying or fasting or whatever. Why do you spend the time to talk about Islam, or any religion for that matter, or God, belief in God? Like, do you think I'm too stupid to not know what's better for myself? Like, why do you think you're smarter? Why do you think that, like, I'm too dumb to not know what to believe in? And this is my answer from the heart. I really don't care or have a problem with anybody choosing to spend the time in their life as they wish to spend their time. If you wish to spend your time praying, fasting, talking to God, meditating, whatever you want to spend your time doing, you're an adult, you're a grown man, a grown woman, you can do what you like with your time. My problem is not that. You see, I have a bigger problem. My bigger problem is the lie of religion. The lie of the hereafter. The lie of the day of judgment. The lie of, if you don't do what I say, you will go to hell. And I will throw you in hell and I will burn you in hell. And if you do what I say, I will give you these sweet benefits. I will give you this wine in paradise. I will give you rivers of milk and honey. I will give you lots of wonderful things, but only if you follow me, follow Muhammad. This is what I have a problem with. You know what I have a problem with? I have a problem with people forcing the religion on others. I have a problem with children who don't want to believe, who don't believe, not don't want to. You can't choose to believe. Either you believe or you don't believe. And the ones that don't believe, they're forced to pray, they're forced to do stuff they don't want to do. Right? Supposedly there's no compulsion in religion, yet, I have friends that, their parents want to beat them up if they don't pray. Or even if they're not violent with them, they're forced. Even some of these guys are adults. Some of these guys, the full-grown adults going to university, their parents will lose it if they leave Islam. They will lose their shit. They will kick these guys out so fast. They will stop talking to them. Their own, one of my friends, Abdullah Gondal, his own auntie and family members are wishing death on him and his newborn child, and come on, this is disgusting. And what is to say about the ones who think it's true and are making sacrifices, who sacrifice the one and only life for the sake of Allah, fi sabilillah? I know people that if the chance came to go for jihad, fi sabilillah, they'll go for jihad. They'll sacrifice, like the hadith of the man who asked the Prophet. He had a date in his hand, a date seed, and he said, is anything between me and paradise except this date? And the Prophet said, I'm paraphrasing the story, and he said, no, if you die in the sake of Allah, you'll go to paradise, Jannah, no questions asked. Allah will not take you to account for all the bad deeds you did. And the day of judgment, the hellfire, not a problem for you. You gotta pass. And if you live, you get the booty, right? You get the slaves, you get the boy booty, the ghanima. It's a good deal. So the man threw away his date and he fought till he was killed. How many people, now tell me, if this is the only life we have, if this is the only chance we have to exist, what bigger loss can you have than your precious life? The little bit of time that we have, what is it, 10,000 days that we get? Something like that? 40 years, 50 years, 60 years of life, minus sleeping. The free time that you have, you're being robbed of your free time by an imaginary promise of something you'll get in return. This is why I want to talk about the religion. This is why I want to talk about Islam. Because I made a lot of sacrifice myself personally. I didn't buy a house. I prayed 5 times a day, no matter where I was. Whether I was at the park, whether I was at the amusement park, whether I was at my office. I would find a place and I would say my prayers. For what? What was I praying to? Was anybody listening to me? Anybody answering me? By all means, say your prayers if you want to. But if you think you're going to be tortured in hell if you don't do it, you're being robbed of your life, your one and only life. And this is why I speak about Islam. Because people are being robbed of the one and only life they have. And I don't want to see that. I don't want a single person to give up the one and only life that they have for some excuse, for some false promise of paradise which is never coming. So my friends, this is an important cause. You are helping people get back the only life they ever have. Maybe if there's another life, great. But I'll tell you one thing, Islam is not true. I know that for a fact. There's more than 10 different ways you can see the Quran is man-made. From the stories, from the descriptions of the world, how flawed they are, from the borrowing it does, from the benefits that Muhammad got from this religion, from this holy book. There's so many ways you can see right through this lie. By all means, practice spirituality. You know what I mean? Take the time to meditate. Wake up in the morning. Calm yourself down. Don't pick up your phone. This is advice on myself too. Just do some meditation, Calm yourself. Be in the moment. I could use the same thing myself. But am I going to shut up about this topic? Hell no. this is one of the most important topics that we can talk about. Help people to see through the lie of Islam. How many people do I know? I know more than 10 people who memorized the entire Quran, word for word, 6,236 verses. More than 20, 30 hours of audio citation time. Entire book cover to cover. And now they left Islam. Do you think they're glad they spent all that time memorizing the Quran? What a waste of time. What a waste of time for me. Like all the time, all the energy. I could have worked at a bank. Instead I'm like stuck for Allah. Bank, Allah's curse. So I don't want to work at no bank. I don't want to work with no interest. I don't want to work with no riba. I don't want to be involved in these industries. For what? For a lie. For Muhammad's false promise of paradise, just so he could get some small gains. Maybe he was honest. Maybe he was sincere. I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe he was. But you know what? Islam is a lie. And it's worth talking about. And that's my perspective. And I have every right to share that perspective. Okay? And sometimes, you know what? I try to be respectful. Sometimes it might sound like I'm making fun. Maybe sometimes I mock Islam. You know what I mean? Like, there's a time and place to mock. I don't think we should jump to mocking, but sometimes it's worth mocking. Sometimes it's worth, like dialoguing and asking a question. Like, sometimes it's worth trying to write something that sounds like the Quran and ask, is this so amazing after all? You know what I mean? This is what I believe. How many women have to cover their hair, cannot go and enjoy swimming and dress, just dress modestly or even dress immodestly, however they want to dress? They have to cover their head. They have to cover themselves from head to toe in the heat of summer, because Muhammad said you have to cover yourself, and because the Islamic law says you have to cover. Like, what's the point of all this suffering? What's the point of giving up riba? What's the point of not eating pork? I mean, I don't like pork. I mean, I drink alcohol. It's fine. If you don't want to drink alcohol, don't drink alcohol. But you're taking away people's freedom to choose to live the life they want to live. You're taking away their purpose and giving them Muhammad's purpose instead. And I think this is disgusting. I think Islam, and I think any other religion that lies and tells people they're going to burn in hell, is disgusting. Because you're robbing people of the only life they have. That's my 2 cents. A little bit angry, but I hope the message came across. Thanks. Bye.